Has here at Shield Canine. Let's talk about the differences between males and females. So I'm out here with Enzo and Eva. Eva's the black and tan and Enzo's the big sable. And these are two working line German Shepherds. And I'm often asked, should I get a male? Should I get a female? Which one's better? Which one's better for work? Which one's better for pet? And the answer is, there is no right answer, but there is information, right? Because I say there's no right answer because the answer is different depending on your needs, depending on your experience, and depending on your current situation, okay? So let's talk about the obvious differences. Okay, males in dogs tend to be larger. If you've got, of course, you can have really big males and really small males and really big females that are bigger than the small males. But overall, males tend to be larger, can be up to 10, 20 pounds larger in some cases. And that's because of secondary sex characteristics. Testosterone impacts growth. Just like estrogen does, but in a different way. So, what you're going to see in a male, typically bigger head, bigger chest, heavier bones. And females tend to be a little bit slighter. And of course, again, to some degree, depends on the breeding, depends on their ancestry. But as you can see here, with these two dogs, then the female is actually a pretty good sized female. But you can see that the male is definitely a male. Anyways. That's the obvious stuff, and it's important, of course, if you're leaving your dog intact. If you're one of these crazy people that fixes your dog at a couple months of age, well, then you're probably not going to see the secondary sex characteristics very much, because those hormones, the testosterone and the estrogen, aren't going to be present for very long. Now, let's talk about the next biggest thing, in my opinion. Your situation at home, all right? What do you have going on? Do you have, and by this I mean, do you have an existing male or female dog? All right, that's big. That is really, really big, because same-sex aggression is probably the most common type of dog-on-dog aggression that you ever see. Now, this is wrestling. These guys are having a good old time. He might have been just slightly annoyed there, but this is case in point. If that had been two males, it would have been a serious fight, right? Like he would have jumped on her and really kicked her butt, so to speak. But she's a female, so he's a lot more tolerant of what he does. And these guys barely hang out, by the way. They're, I put them out once in a while together, but because she's a female, he's very tolerant of her behavior. Even if she's bossy, even if she's nippy, even if she hurts him a little bit, there's only so far it'll go. Whereas male on male, oh boy, especially when they get, 14, 18 months and up, then you're in dangerous territory. Female on female is the same, all right? Though it's less common. Now, when I say these things, guys, I'm making a lot of generalities, okay? There's always exceptions to these rules, okay? There's more aggressive males, there's more aggressive females. I'm making generalities, and my generalities aren't based on 2 dogs. They're not based on 10 dogs. They're based on training, breeding, tracking, obedience, protection, with probably up to 1,000 dogs by now, owning. So I have a very kind of, large cross section to make these pronouncements from. And these are generalities that I've observed. All right. So like I was saying, now it depends on what kind of dog you have. So look, if you got a male Chihuahua and you want to bring another male Chihuahua into your house, it's probably not going to be a huge issue, especially if you're halfway, competent in terms of how you're managing the dogs. But if you got 2 Labradoodles, 2 males are probably going to be just fine. Now, you're getting into the more powerful breeds, the German Shepherds, the Rottweilers, the Corsos, the Mastiffs. Under no circumstance, if you already have a male, do you get another male unless you really know what you're doing, right? Even females, like I said, it's risky. You get 2 females, bitch fights are a legit thing, and I've had bitches put each other in the hospital, okay? It's quite a common thing. It is not some average thing. So again, look at that, right? This is pretty intense playing, right? But nobody, it stops at a point, and they kind of re-engage with each other, right? It stops at a point. But when it's same sex, oftentimes there are less inhibitions to stop, and things get nasty really fast. The next thing you know, you have a vet bill, and then you have dogs that can't be in the same room with one another. So same-sex aggression is a thing to be really, really cautious of. Now, let's talk about some of the other differences. Let's talk about work, for instance, okay? So, you want a working dog. Is there a difference between males and females? Hell yes, there is. Females tend to be more handler sensitive. They're more sensitive and more emotional on average when it comes to things like corrections, the emotions that the handler brings to the training, right? So if you're in a bad mood or you're a grumpy guy, maybe a female might not be the best because they tend to be a little bit more sensitive to these kinds of things. Again, this is a generality. There are exceptions. Males tend to be a little bit more resilient, okay? A little bit tougher, a little bit less sensitive to corrections, bounce back a little bit faster, a little less sensitive to emotions. They can also, in general, be a little bit more independent, all right? So males tend to be a little bit harder. And again, listen, guys, testosterone and estrogen makes a big difference. The biggest difference probably, and the reason why males tend to be a little bit stronger in protection work is self-preservation, right? And if you think about it from a biological standpoint, it makes sense. Self-preservation is big, okay? Now, females tend to have more self-preservation because they biologically raise young, okay? The puppies depend on them for life. If a female dies or gets injured, then if she has a litter of puppies, they're dead, right? They rely on her for milk, for nutrition, okay? Whereas males can be, you know, they have a little bit less self-preservation, I think brought on by the testosterone, right? You think about yourself, if you're a guy, remember when you were 18? How much self-preservation did you have, right? Now maybe you get up 40, 50, you have a little bit more, but this is why young men, you know, die at much greater levels than young women, right? Like testosterone is a thing and it definitely impacts your thought process and your behavior. And it's no different in dogs. To some degree, of course, it does manifest itself differently in many ways. So, you know, definitely the self-preservation of males, I find in general, with exceptions, tends to be less. And the intensity that they bring to things like bite work tend to be a little bit more. So, you know, if you're looking for a working dog, generally, again, depending on what it is that you want, if biting is involved, generally the males tend to be they have a little bit of an edge. Now, if you have a female that is better than a lot of males, and believe me, I've run into them. I've run into females that are better than a lot of males. And, you know, these are exceptional females that need to be bred because they have something to really give to whatever breed it is that they're a member of. But again, I'm speaking in generalities here. So for work, I mean, generally, if you're looking for a strong dog, male's the way to go. Now, let's say you're one of these people that just has to have a Malinois or a Boer Bull or a Kenna Corso or something like this, and you know, you want one of these breeds, but you've never had a dog before. You've never had a dog before, but you just fell in love with the Belgian Malinois, right? Now, in that circumstance, I recommend that you get a female, right? Because you're a novice. And those types of dogs tend to be a little bit less forgiving with novices, right? So if you are a novice and you're getting into a more powerful breed, get a female because there's less potential for bad things to happen. And even if there are issues, they tend to be a little bit less intense, all right? So in general, if there are going to be handler issues, right? And handler issues can be caused by a lot of things. They are often caused by bad handling, a lack of a lack of boundaries, a lack of good training can often cause handler issues, and it also can be temperament related, like the individual dog. You've got a particularly challenging dog, right? That can be an issue as well. If you're going to have handler issues, they're more likely in males, and they tend to be less intensive females. And males and females, like I said, the females are just more sensitive. The females are a little bit more responsive to the handler, and they take corrections a little better, and it's just, you know, for a novice, it's easier to deal with a female. So for a pet, now again, it depends, right, guys? Again, like I said, usually the biggest thing for people that are looking to buy a pet is you already have a dog. Almost everybody that comes to me to buy dogs already has one. And if they already have one, right, I always say, and you know, unless you've got one that's like he's maybe got a few months left to live and he's on his way out, don't get another male, you know, or don't get another female if you've already got a female. It's just generally a bad idea, and you're setting yourself up for more potential issues. Now, if you're not a novice, you're probably not watching this anyways, and it doesn't particularly matter. You can manage two males, powerful or otherwise, in the house, and you can manage 2 females. But if you are, it does matter. So, does it make a difference? Yes. Now, people ask, okay, I don't want my male humping me. This is the problem with males, is they always hump you. No, they don't. That's a behavioral issue. That's you allowing a really inappropriate behavior. And it's actually not related to reproduction, right? Humping is actually generally a social behavior in dogs, right? It can be an indication of dominance. In fact, it usually is. It can even be a kind of almost a play-based behavior. When they get really excited, they just kind of hump each other. And I've seen females do it just about as much as I've seen males do it, all right? Now look, if you got a female and she's in heat, sure, your male may want to hump her, and that's the exception, right? Now, because you own a male doesn't mean that you're going to get humped. Not unless you're one of these people that has like 0 boundaries with your dog. If you are, then okay, you know, you're going to get all sorts of problems. Humping's probably going to be the least of them. So, you know, males and females are different. They have different, you know, physical gifts, they have different behaviors, but they're also more the same than they are different, if that makes any sense. We're talking about small differences because this was a video about differences. I think I pretty much covered everything. If you think that I've left something out, or if you have any questions, feel free, you know, again, look, I'm just talking off the top of my head and standing in a pen with some dogs running around in it. If you think I've forgotten anything, you know, feel free to mention it in the comments below, and maybe I'll do another video on that. Or, you know, you can just make a statement that I forgot something and that I'm an idiot, and we can go from there. But either way, you know, like I said, depends on the breed, depends on your personal situation. But again, they are more similar than they are different, but they can be different.